manita wali. Ino tatongu, wenchi di kubuni. Di kututa futulu mawafu di kenyose. Afaga bevai, mahiru, tukunu materu. Naba, mahiru naba. On the truth teller, the prophet Nebnabala Musa more than a bigger, the chosen one, the Messiah. Isina basa ile mogenaba. Dikizi yomuti difese, dikizi yomuti difese. Amerita biya no ifese, Amerita biya no ifese. Anye kizi yomuti nyamfese, dikizi yomuti difese. Anya dile maheru shinye fese, Amerita biya no ifese. Inala fotela, inane bao, tukunu masiru naba. Someone the Messiah. He is the chosen one and the Messiah. He's the light and the way, the wisdom of our day, the healer, the preacher, the truth teller. Bangatito bunge, listen up a second. Watch out before step. Chosen one, the Messiah. Listen up a second. Watch out before step. Listen up a second. Watch out before step.
Sponsor a child from the Dogon villages today. They are the future healers, leaders and preservers of Kemetic traditions. Just like Prophet Nebnaba, these children of the Earth Center and our network of healers are being educated in local schools in addition to their indigenous cultural practices and traditions. This comprehensive education both positions them to inherit the work of their forefathers and mothers and continues bridging the gap between traditional and modern societies. So go ahead, support, find out more about our campaigns and donate by going to www.theearthcenter.org. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120
Jai, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. My name is Nahibsa Nesibik, alongside
Ujjayi, everyone, it's Kasati Hekama.
Ujjayi, Saati, Irijet.
Is that coming through?
No, which mic is she on?
Yeah, try it.
Did that go through? Ujjayi, everybody. Saati, Irijet.
Do all for that, Cinti. Yeah, and we're here representing the Earth Center. We first want to acknowledge the ancestors, the divine world, and we also want to acknowledge the ancestors. We also want to acknowledge, apologies for that, it's like accident taking place in the background. Yeah, we want to acknowledge Prophet Nabil Musa Borodedibig. He's a Kemetic Dogon high priest, he's a high priest in Ila from the Dogomba people. Now, the Makaruru, he attended a university in Kenya, right, also excelling in traditional spiritual education and spiritual initiation as well. Eventually, after going through this education, from a childhood, he went to colonial school. He attended Western school. Further in his education, he was able to surpass the level of his masters, right, to become one of the most knowledgeable kind of spiritual masters of the Dogon people. The Master Neba, he's a master of Umtam science, which is about studying the earth energy reading, using the dialogue of energy to read the earth energy, and from there they can read what's in the past, the present, and the future. Now, Master Neba, he spoke about 13 different languages amongst English and German, and throughout his journey of traveling the world, he visited about 127 different countries. Master Neba, he was a writer, and he published over 25 books. Some of these books include, books that we read from week to week, like the Ejpata. It's a book of parables, short stories, really. Stories that you can reflect on, really, right? That's relevant to our everyday going on in our lives. Then there's a philosophy podium, which is the only book that's actually written by a true Dogon priest. We've also got the Book of Purification. That book there, gives you the understanding of how to cleanse yourself, basically, before presenting yourself, doing your zemzem, and approaching the divine world and the ancestors. We've also got Master Neba also. He wrote a lot of articles in the Firefly magazines. In that magazine, we also have initiates. They also kind of write articles as well. We've also got the Sunnyside magazine, which it's not in publication anymore. So, that was originally one of the magazines that was being distributed really throughout the world. Master Neba, he actually also researched, right, and we established the sidereal calendar, and that calendar is the most astronomically correct calendar, which is not based off religion and religious beliefs. He also gave us the great book of Divine Audience, which is the 77 Commandments. Alongside that, Master Neba was parapsychologist, he was a metaphysician, he was an activist, he was involved in a lot of things in kind of, he was a Pan-Africanist. How do you say that?
Pan-Africanist.
Yeah. So we're just giving you a brief background, really, like of who established the Earth Center, and his credential, really, in terms of where we speak about, like, you know, we get information out there, and oftentimes it's just coming from nowhere. And we have a history behind some of the things that we speak about, because he is, you know, our teacher is Deb Naba Irita, but Master Naba is his teacher, and there's a, you know, he's got his own master that he kind of can go back to establish how genuine this knowledge that is brought to us, really, right, is to us, really. Master Naba, he was known throughout Merita as one of the masters, like, of, well, to the Dogon people. He was as a Kemetic master. He was a great master, and he sought permission, like, from the kingship and the divinities and the hierarchies, about bringing this knowledge, really, to us here in the West.
Listening to bless. This is George. Saying keep it locked.
In 1996, he was given permission, and he embarked, really, like, to America, where he started off the first school in Chicago, and he went further on, really, to open up another 2 schools there, but make it 3, and then he traveled back to Burkina Faso, where he started off another school there. Master Naba's goal was to basically reorientate and re-educate us with what we would say is true knowledge, in reflection to what society is actually teaching us today. We've been dumbed down with a lot of miseducation, and the path that they're taking us down is to destruction. And so we know that knowledge is the key, right, behind most things that we do in this world. As they say, the brain can't invent, so if we're not exposed to something, then we're kind of stuck, really. So it's through that knowledge, you know, of him coming and exposing, you know, these profound words, profound knowledge that the Kemetic Dogon people have sat down for thousands of years, you know, due to the invasion on the Kemetic people. Now, in the Umtam school, we teach, there's 3 topics, 3 subjects that are taught there. They are like the Medu. Medu is where we learn about language and spirituality, philosophy, sorry. There's then the Katibi class, where we learn about meditation and spirituality. And we also have the Sun class, which we learn about healing, looking after yourself, looking after your body, understanding how your body works, and connecting ourselves back to nature and using nature, really, to heal ourselves. Traditionally, people depended more on nature, on the herbs, on the natural herbs, as opposed to what Western society is kind of is giving us now, which is pure chemicals, basically, which is killing us. So in the tradition, herbs and nature, our spiritual base, all these things were used in the process of trying to heal ourselves. We just want to give out some information as to some of the products, some of the CDs, lectures that Master Naba, videos that he gave, the commandment, the 77 commandments. All these books publication and things, right, could be got at the Earth Center. So could you read that there?
Yeah. To purchase the publications, they're available on our website. For those in North America and internationally, it's at www.theearthcenter.org. Center is spelled CENTER. And for those in the UK and Europe, it's www.theearthcenteruk.com. Telephone number for the London school is 0208 558 3678. And for the Coventry school, we have a branch in Coventry. Nahib, so if you could just read the Coventry number, please.
Yeah, the Coventry number is 024 7626 6859. Alternatively, we have 073 059 95944. They are the two numbers that you can say contact the Coventry School on.
And you can also email us on enquiries-uk@theearthcenter.org.
Yeah. And if people are interested really in sort of obtaining more knowledge, more information about what the Earth Center is about, they are the numbers, they are the contact numbers, global, that you can contact the Earth Center. We're gonna play you. No, first of all, we're gonna go into current affairs. What is happening?
If you have something you can talk, because I don't.
You've got no current affairs issues. What popped up to me was this president of Haiti that's just been killed. He was attacking his home, and he was killed, and alongside his wife was injured. It was interesting that because the people seem to be crying out that this president, when he got into power, it's like he overstayed his stay in office, and there seemed to be a little bit of foul play about the time that he was supposed to spend in office, and the people were suffering from what the news was saying, like on the BBC News report, and consequently, well, it seemed like, I don't know who it was, but he was attacked in his home and killed. But in his term at office, it seemed like there was a lot of money that actually disappeared, really, because apparently there was about $4 billion that was supposed to be used, like in development projects, for agriculture and certain other projects to help to develop the status of the country, to assist, which it was about helping the poor people from the bottom, really, to elevate themselves, really. And apparently, really, none of this money was actually spent doing what it was supposed to be doing. And the people that were protesting from 2019, apparently they've been protesting about, they don't like the corruption that's actually taking place with this government, and this particular president is seemed to have like good relationships with American. They were supposed to be the American. Was it the U.S. government seemed to be supporting him? The United Nations and the Organization of American States, they seem to be supporting him, really, I don't know, probably keeping him in there in office, and it seemed like it was in their interest while he was there. As we know, that Haiti is one of those first islands or countries that really that actually stood up, really, against slavery. And ever since, really, they've been in poverty, always struggling, really, right, to kind of to stand on their own 2 feet. And we can see, like, where corruption, like within all the African countries, where leaders are placed there, really, through the Western colonial masters who are still controlling our resources in the country. So that was just my current affair that popped up to me, really, right. That was interesting, really. It's not surprising, really, what's taking place, considering we're going to play this tune and then we're going to go into another segment of the show. If I can get this to play. It's not coming through. Okay, we just have a bit of technical issues again. We're just trying to sort this out. In the meantime,
I will give you the studio number for anyone that wants to call in and interact with the show. It's 07944431366. And also, whilst Nahibsa gets his technical problems sorted out, I will announce the Earth Centre London has a series of lectures, monthly lectures, and the first one is going to be the 31st of July, and that's entitled The Importance of Practicing an African Spiritual System. This is going to be held at our London Temple in Leighton, and it's also going to be available for those who can't make it to the temple. It will be available online. So you can contact the London School on 0208 558 3678 for further inquiries. And we just sort out these technical difficulties. One moment, please.
Send them come. sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. Yo, yo, yo. Word sound are where we depend. Word sound just as powerful as any weapon. Lyrics from the heart, that is my ammunition. Right now me depend automatic transmission. I man is a soldier on a musical mission. Blaze me lyrical composition. Me no need no license, nah no permission. Firing at alongside the musician. Word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. Them say sticks and stones will break your bones, but words can never hurt. That might be right in theory, in reality that don't work. Words can make you look so stupid, feel just like a jerk, or bring you up so high till you're the ruler of the earth. For total satisfaction you need words alongside action. When it manifests it gives a positive reaction. Comfort and encouragement, some words of motivation. The right word in the right place can go educate a nation. Word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. Yo. Send them come, cause we ready for them. Done them done. Anytime we give them. Tell them once, tell them twice. Now go tell them again. Finger cock, finger lock, ready for go for me pen. Mightier than the sword, I no lie, I no fraud. Words go pretty far, change more people than war. I no blah me a blah, even left you with scar. Good words can shape who you are. Word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. It's all about words. Never underestimate the power of words. Make sure them sweet, never sour those words. Make sure your words are inspiring words. Can even stop a gun from firing. Words can be good, words can be bad. Words can be happy, words can be sad. Words can do damage and drive people mad. In the beginning was the word of word sound. Word sound in power. 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 Yo, yo, yo. Word sound are where we depend. Word sound just as powerful as any weapon. Lyrics from the art.
Jai, welcome back to the show, the Wisdom of the Nile show. Our topic tonight really is going to be around on language, word, power, word, sound and power. Really, to be looking at this topic here, we probably have to going to be looking at really what is a language and what is the importance of a language. What is the original language of humanity, or humanity's first language? We're going to be looking at this word, sound and power, and how basically what was the original word, sound and power. You know, we know that Medu is a language, you know, it's been of clear concept with value, so we're going to be looking also at the corruption within the English dialect and its contemporary agreement. You know, we see how many of the world leaders, you know, through their speech writers, they understand the power of words and why they're able to manipulate really the consciousness of people's mind, their body and soul. They understand, or they use different sound frequencies of varying tones, you know, that it stimulate and control parts of the brain. So you know, they can cause people to behave certain way, to react in certain way, because they understand really, and they do a lot of research really on word sounds and the power that it actually carries, and how even within the English language, through its limitation, it actually keep you retarded basically. We get to understand that really by doing Medu. In the Medu language, we see how the words, the different sonograms and the ideograms that's used in that language, how it helped to kind of to reach part of the brain just through the sounds that's actually the words that you're speaking. It resonates with certain parts of the brain and stimulate the brain. So we understand that really, right, that the same way you can get positive reaction by using the Medu language, we also realize really, right, that you can also use it in a negative way. That's the Eru set, you know, both sides. You could use power in many different ways. And so we know that using the Medu language, or speaking the Medu language and learning it, you know, that's going to help and assist stimulating your brain for you to be able to kind of, say, use it to its capacity. Now, we talk about word, sound and power, and one word that actually stands out to me is truth. That's what's hidden from the multitude of people out there in the world. You know, there's a lack of honesty and humility from the modern Western world, you know, with their religions and its corruption. You know, they're trying to replace the voice of the ancestors. So because even the gods listen to the ancestors, so it's important really that when they take away your ancestors, you're not able to have that interaction with them. You know, when we ask for things and we pray for things, that's what we're trying to do, commute with our ancestors. It's the ancestors that actually carries your word, your wishes, your prayers to the divine world. So that's a part of the corruption that Western society is basically using on us really, right, to keep us down. You know, through the Umtam school, you know, we can get to learn more about the powers of the ancestors and how you can commune with them. You know, our ancestors play the part really where they replace that with the European philosophies and the words that our children are being taught. You know, where Satapchi, she's going to be going through like just breaking down for you the contemporary agreement really, right, that is being used in our English language now, which actually dumbing down our youths out there really, right, you know, keeping them retarded in that state of madness and chaos, you know, where they're not able to kind of to access their brain, because I said these negative words that's used really, it does trigger off certain things in the brain, and we're seeing actions and reaction from our youth from out there, and we're wondering, you know, just the language that they're speaking to themselves, they carry negative connotations to them, but to them it's something positive. So when our guest comes on, he's going to be probably going into a little bit and explaining to you about language, word, sound and power. You know, I don't know if you want to read the article from the monster in hearts.
Yeah, so Nahipsa wants me to read The Monster in the Heart from the Hedge Patar, Initiatic Tales of the Hedge Patar. And This one is our relationship with good or evil can make us a consenting victim. So a French philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, impressed the world for decades with his famous expression, "The human being is born good. It is a society that corrupts him." For too long, humanity has exposed its incapability of reasoning and the obscurantist nature of its evolution in the fact that we have found a sort of intellectual and philosophical brilliance in that expression, as if we knew what to be good means. The question that, until today, is in the head of every being that is worried about the becoming of the world is, without a doubt, do we know how to be good? What definition do we bring to the concept of goodness? Can we give to that concept a definition that is non-partisan? I mean to be good at all frontiers, to be good without making victims, to be good without being a partner in crime. The truth, according to the philosophical school of is that there is no human being that is born good. There is no country of goodness. The individual struggle is the same everywhere. We all evolve toward absolute goodness. The individual feels influences of forces that we can find sympathetic and those we can find negative. Even being born in the holy city will not protect us from these influences. Without a model of gods that we consider perfect, and to reproduce the 77 commandments, we must recognize that we have taken on a challenge that is practically impossible to win, taking into consideration our human nature. It is clear that we will not be able to recognize the evil if it is not pointed out to us, and we will only notice the evil that inhabits us if there is in our environment an individual who is honest enough to point it out to us while it is manifesting itself. Our relationship with the good and the evil of the world places us in a position of a consenting victim. In the Gurmanchi countries, we say that there is a monster in the human heart. Every time that monster manifests itself, even the devil loses his throne. The principle of life consists of the fact that each one of us should domesticate his monster. The original cosmogony has presented to the world what we call Heru Seth. Heru Seth is presented as a god that is represented by Heru and Seth joined together as Siamese brothers. The two gods represent the forces of destruction and life inhabiting the same body. Yes, Heru and Seth join together until the level of the neck, and then one can find two heads looking in opposite directions. The existence of a double-headed Heru Seth has opened a door to all the philosophical speculations of the modern time concerning the notion of harmony, the Chinese yin and yang, etc. The story I'm going to tell expresses Heru Seth as two forces that inhabit every individual. Heru is favorable to life, resurrection, and the becoming of the world that expands, and Seth is unfavorable to life and is working actively for a becoming of the world that retracts. According to the education, a human being must work to reduce the manifestations of Seth because it always shows up to trouble our identification with the God-child Heru. During the invasion of the Nile Valley by the Romans, one was witnessing a shift that was difficult to understand. The world was good before. The farmer was farming. The weavers were weaving. The merchants were selling. The world was at peace. The people of the Nile Valley could not understand why a whole continent could become a land that every ambitious person would want to conquer. The worst was, without a doubt, the fact that Romans and the other inhabitants of the territories of Europe were educated to simply hate people of colour, their gods, philosophy, etc., and at the same time to loot their temples, pyramids, granaries, technology, etc. The barbarism of the invaders did not make sense. For the people of the South, when you hate somebody, you stay away from them, and you do not accept anything that comes from them. We are witnessing simply a world of hypocrisy. The streets of Karaba were filled with these hypocrite soldiers that were on one hand calling themselves superior to the ones they colonized, and on the other hand were stealing obelisks, gold, diamonds, even mummified bodies and papyri, etc., as spoils of war. The peasants knew that these people came in because they were starving, and making war was their intelligent way of putting food on their tables. It is said that one day a Roman soldier went to visit a temple. He found a priest sitting in front of the temple with his eyes closed, legs crossed, and arms on his knees. The priest was visibly in a deep meditation. Suddenly he was pulled out of his state by a rude and authoritarian voice of the soldier. "Hey, old man, I want you to teach me what you call Heru Seth." The priest stayed with no movement, as if he did not hear the soldier. He did not answer, but started opening his eyes gradually. The soldier could see a faint smile on the corner of the mouth of the priest. The soldier was visibly determined, impatient, and more agitated. "You want to know the secret of Erusef?" the priest replied finally. "You that I find worse than an animal. You with your hands and feet covered with dust and blood. You with a breath that smells like a dead rat. You with a sword that is rusted and neglected. You that everyone found ugly. You who is clothed by your mother. And you are asking me about Heruseth?" After hearing all these words, the soldier entered into an anger with no equal. He pulled his sword and lifted it on the top of his head. His face became red like a tomato. The veins on his neck were swollen. He emitted a bad curse as he was preparing to cut the head of the priest off. And while the sword was coming down towards the neck of the priest gently said, "This is a manifestation of Seth. Now you can see Seth in yourself." In hearing these words, the soldier stopped his action. He was marveled by the intelligence of the priest. He was invaded by compassion and love for this gentle priest that had risked his own life just to teach him. His eyes filled with tears of gratitude. The priest now said with a smile, "This is a manifestation of Heru. This is Heru." The end. And as I said, this is from the Initiatic Tales of Hej Patar that can be found to purchase on the website. and it was written, all the stories, the initiatic stories in there, written by Nebnaba Musa Moradanibig.
Yeah, and it just that was just an example of how powerful words can be, you know, to activate and to deactivate situations out there, you know. So we're going to play you this tune here, and then we're going to bring in our guests.
It's attempted to her place.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Ujjayi everyone.
Give me a pencil.
Ujjayi.
This is not working.
Okay, Ujjayi everybody, Sat Abti here. Dua Hatini for reading that extract from the Hejpatah. Very powerful and gives us a much deeper understanding of how Heru Seth manifests itself in all of us. So just coming back onto today's topic, which is language, word, sound and power. For most of us, we are aware that language is the cornerstone of civilization, and it's the sound that expresses concepts and values. And we, especially through initiation, through we learn how language carries the culture and the values of a people. So with that, we understand that language or words shape who we are, how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. Also what we accept to be socially acceptable. So words and language can strongly influence us. It shapes us. It can evoke our emotions. And words have the power to uplift, empower and inspire us, whether that to be for good or evil, which is reflective of what we've heard about Heru Seth. But we also understand that words alone mean nothing. It's the concepts that they carry that gives us the meaning and the power. And I know Hatini in the Hipsa, he did touch on, you know, the power of words in terms of the vibration and the energy that it carries, and the fact that our original language was given to us by the world of the Neteru. So language itself has a history, and we know where that history comes from. It comes from a very pure and clean place with a very pure and clean purpose. But where we find ourselves today, in terms of power, the Europeans also were and are very aware of the importance and the power of language, and through that system of colonization, enslavement, and how we were barbarically stripped of our language, we find ourselves in a world today where most of the diaspora can only speak the language of our oppressor. And in this, my case, or in this particular case, it's English. And we know that the English language has derived from many dialects. It's not an original, it's not a language. So, you know, it's an amalgamation of corruption.
It's a grunt.
It's a grunt. Yeah, so, and just that in itself, that sound, that grunt, is like, what kind of energy, what kind of vibration is that really carrying, and what is that really doing to us or for us, is probably the question I would ask. So really, we find ourselves in a place where we have no language, where we're functioning from a place of really no real language. So we have become disconnected from the divine world. We have become disconnected to some extent. We've become disconnected from our traditional values, our principles, our culture, and also the concepts of what our culture really is and what it means. And we learn through M-Time that speaking another person's language, we actually become like them. We adopt their values. So we can see, just in the world that we're living today, the values of this Western world and colonization. And just by speaking the language of these people, we have become them. And it's a great task to now strip ourselves from that indoctrination. So what we actually have now is a grunt that is spiritually dead, is disconnected from nature, and has and many other things, such as it carries a lot of times double meanings. And I know that even in Medu you may have more than one word sounding the same, but Medu comes with that visual concept where you can actually see its expression comes from nature, and you're able to tell the difference, just how Medu is presented. Whereas in the English language, you will have two meaning, one word meaning many things, which is confusing and leads to corruption. As well as double meanings, we have multiple dictionaries. So you have a dictionary for almost every field of I don't know, science, or whatever you would call those educational careers. We have a dictionary for law, a dictionary for this, a dictionary for that. So that in itself is very corrupted, because now it's like you don't really know what you're saying, and it's not in context.
And it's not stable, is it? Because they keep changing it all the time, so you never kind of
you never really grasp what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's like the carrot that they dangle. And so as well as having that, we have very confused Western terms which carry their own concepts. So for example, a Western term is something like each for their own, and in a tradition we would not speak like that. We don't carry that type of concept. We have a communal concept where we work together. We have a oneness. So things like that. And even confused concepts in terms of, if we use the word God, love, sorry and forgiveness, all of these words carry concepts that are counterproductive to the concepts that we understand from a traditional perspective. So that kind of brings me on to the point of contemporary agreements. And if you have been through initiation, if you're on the call and you haven't been through initiation, you would learn about contemporary agreements. And it's also I think it's similar to sarcasm, or sarcasm is like another form. But a contemporary agreement is the use of language that doesn't make sense but has been accepted and used amongst groups of people. So just to give you like a few examples, one is that saying where you say, we'll kill two birds with one stone, which is usually meaning that you're going to complete more than one task with the same resource or within the same time frame. But just by us saying you're going to kill two birds with one stone, actually killing a bird is barbaric. For what reason would you be killing the bird, and what does that have to do with the tasks that you're completing and the resources and the time that you're saving completing those tasks? But this is something that we would just kind of just say, and it doesn't really, it becomes normal. Another is like something like, I could murder a pint. You're thirsty, but where does the murder come into it? And I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Like, who is literally going to just bite into a horse, or who can eat a whole horse to themselves? So, but the most common ones that I kind of can resonate with, because I was kind of growing up in in London, you know, we would use words growing up like bad or wicked or sick and say, oh, that's bad, meaning that's good, or that's wicked, meaning I like that, you know, or that's sick. And I think that's a more current term now, that's sick. Everything's sick. So,
which means good.
Which means good.
Yeah.
When, you know, it's being said in that
Impressed
context.
by it, yeah.
So somehow being wicked now becomes fun or a joke or even something that's desirable. Because we start to say it with a smile. Because you could even say, oh, that you're so wicked. And you're saying that with a smile. So I'm actually, you're telling someone that they're wicked, meaning that you're good. It's just confusion.
So what's the word that they use for wicked?
How do you mean?
For the
Wait,
real
for the
act of
wicked.
real act of
Exactly.
being wicked.
So when it's said,
it's still used.
you don't know
That's
what
why
they're
it's-
actually
yeah.
making reference to.
And that's the point. And you would actually say someone can commit a wicked act and you'll be like, oh, that person's so wicked, but you could actually say it with a smile.
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned and accustomed to actually using that word with a jovial energy that now...
That's if you buy into the contemporary agreement.
Right.
You
Which-
have to understand and buy into it in order to have the full justification of what it means. Somebody from another country would not use that because they don't know, because as it's contemporary and it relates to certain regions at certain given times, moments and times in history. So yeah, a foreigner would not understand what that means. You can imagine how confusing that is to
It will be.
Yeah. But then I would presume that even a foreigner in their regions have their own contemporary agreements.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
But what messages are we sending to children
Exactly.
who are growing up? We're telling a child, don't be bad. But yet still, if a child does something
Good.
which certain adults might think, wow, that's really good, you know, they might say, that's bad, man.
Yes.
Oh, that's
How
wicked,
confusing is that to a child?
But it's a negative
So-
energy though. What is it actually doing to that person's
Exactly.
psychic, really, unconsciously?
It's
not
causing
knowing?
mental illness, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, because it becomes normal to us, and then but it's not true. And like you touched on that a bit earlier on, Hatsani, where you was talking about truth and the power of truth, but then we're speaking these contemporary agreements which are actually not true. And it's actually spiritually dishonest, so it's confusing. And so the question is really, what is that doing to our spirit? What is that doing to our mental psyche? And how is that impacting on our purity?
Negative.
So it's not logical. And what we have learned through initiation is that the spirit requires logic. And if we're not making sense, then we're not actually feeding our spirit. So we have to be mindful of what words really mean, how we use them, and why we're using them. And just to kind of just end on what I'm saying is, there is an Ethiopian proverb that says, "The fool speaks and the wise man listens." And I think that's a very powerful proverb in terms of just being mindful of that. We need to listen more than we speak. We need to listen to what these words mean, have an understanding before we start being so freely with our words. And which ties in perfectly with the 23rd commandment of the 77, which is thou shalt not sin by excess speech. And I think it's clear that the Neteru could see where humanity was going and the type of guidance that we would need to rein ourselves back. And that commandment is helpful. It supports us in being able to assess and really think about language and words and how we're using them.
Because each word does carry its power, and when put together, you've got an ingredient there that can you control it, because it's that combination put together, isn't it? You know, so yeah, do well for that.
Yeah.
We're gonna play this interval. This is Tony Rebel, Teach the Children, and it is about the upcoming future of our youths.
Station of your heart, be acceptable. Yeah, you know. Dance the little words on your mouth in the meditation of your heart. Be acceptable. Or else you know that you're gonna be responsible. Sin. And I say you find yourself for the instrument of influence. Use it in a positive sense. Or else you're gonna pay the consequence. Rebel speaks again. I say be careful what you teach your little children. Make sure I know something to hurt them. Mind what you saying to my sister. She could be the next prime minister. I say if you watch what you saying to me daughter, cause in the long run she could be your doctor. Oh, you feel mention that to me son Dan. I mean a woman little wife it on a gunman. Still you never listen. Your ears must be missing. Every day you say you're gonna shine and a glisten. You're talking for the scream and the lighter and the whistle. It look like you forget all about that blessing. The words not from your mouth. Meditation of your heart should be free from negative. Have every sort. Want a good cow, you better grow a good calf. Be careful what you inject. What you inject in the youth them talk. And just watch what you teach your little children. Make sure I know something to hurt them. Mind what you saying to me sister, cause she could be the next prime minister. I say be careful what you saying to me daughter, cause in the long run she could be your doctor. Oh, you feel mention that to me son Dan.
Yeah, should I stay?
You shall escape the judgment and watch where you teach your little children. I say for mind what you saying to my sister, cause she could be the next prime minister. I say be careful what you saying to my daughter, cause in the long run she could be your doctor. Oh, you feel mention that to me son Dan. You know I'm a little wife it all over man. If you say you love the youth and that is the truth, we will find out that you are judged by the fruit. If you teach them fish shoot.
Okay, good. So do you want me to stay on the line? Okay, and you can hear me fine?
So at this stand I get you so the lead them astray. Your responsibility is to show them the way, and if you don't then somebody have to pay. So watch when you teach your little children. Make sure I know something to hurt them. I know what you say to my sister, cause she could be the next prime minister. Oh, you can say them the things to me daughter. When you be long run, she could be your doctor. Nobody mention that to me son Dan.
Still good?
Can you hear us then? Ujjayi?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. And would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners? You've been here before. I'm sure they would, when they hear your voice, they will be familiar with your voice. So please, could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kasabez, Maakmaah. I am an initiate of the Chicago Earth Center, and I've been, in Africa now. I'm in the process of relocating there with my family, so we've been here since January, and we're loving it here.
Okay, so what's the weather like over there? Because it's not too good for us here.
Hot. It's hot, but it's rainy season now, so it's raining every other day or so, and when it rains, it cools down.
Yeah, that's good. At least you're in the right place to read it. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
It's not, we're not just here for the weather, although it does help not to have to worry about snow and stuff.
well, but you're getting all that melanin and everything else that goes with it that energize you and keep your mind active, where they say in initiation, anything close to the equator line there, you're living. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to this week's subject here, it's about language, wisdom, words, sound, and power. don't know if you would like to start off really with basically breaking down really like how we actually got a language and where did it actually came from.
Well, okay. For some reason, someone's trying to call me on Facebook. Let me turn my computer off. Excuse me. So you guys talked about it earlier, about the Medu language, the the language we understand to be at the origins of language. But if we go beyond that, we can see, even if you look at, for example, the Christian doctrine, they will say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So even in Christianity, you can see that principle being maintained of the importance of the Word, and the Word being at the origins of creation. According to the Kemetic temples, we learned that the creation also started with the Word, with the speech of the first God to come into what we're just calling this existence and speak Word to create what, or to make his speech to basically get creation going. Speech is, at the center of every, human activity. If you even look, or if you even think about like what you're going to do, you're going to have like a play-by-play in your head of like your thoughts, even in a language. That's how powerful language is, that even for you to think, you have to think in a language. So everything, language, words, is at the center of everything that we'll be doing. And aside from that, a word once spoken, the vibration of the sound that the word carries, it echoes out into existence. And it's something that becomes part of reality. I know in the modern world, we have this kind of, they breed in this kind of helpless type of mentality, like whatever's happening in the world, it's not something we can affect. It's not something that we can do anything about. Or we basically feel like we have no role in the becoming of existence, or the way things happen. A lot of times we think that whatever we're doing, it only affects us. It doesn't affect other people. Even if it affects us, it's not going to affect somebody else. That's where the individualist ideologies kind of come from. This idea of things being able to happen in a vacuum, like it doesn't affect anybody. It's my business. I can do what I want to do. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't hurt you. So you should leave me alone and let me do it. Let me do me. This is the kind of attitude that people have. But the reality, as we're taught in the Kemetic schools, is that there's no empty space in existence. Whatever we think is empty is really full space. It's just something we maybe can't perceive. Just like the air between us that we can't see. Maybe we can't see it so that we'll be able to see something that's more than, an inch in front of our face. But it exists. We can feel it. We know that it's what's going into our lungs every time we breathe. We know that's what's under the wings of the birds and the airplanes that we send into the sky. We know it exists. So there's no empty space. Even what you call a space in space, it's not empty. If it was empty, kind of like, I don't know, when I was a kid, we were taught that space is empty, like there's nothingness. But if it was empty, then how would a jet be able to propel itself through space? In order to move forward, you have to be able to push against something. So space shuttles or rockets or whatever, they have to be able to push against something. And in order to be able to turn, it has to be able to push against something. So clearly, if they're telling us that they're in space and they have crafts that can maneuver through space, it can only happen because the space is something substantial enough. It's not void or nothing. It's like they teach us. So there's no such thing as void. Even beyond the physical things that we can perceive, feel, and touch, there's all these radio frequencies that we're using right now to communicate long distances. This phone is not connected to any wire in order to send a message or be able to send a sound or a code to end up on the other side. It's because these radio frequencies exist. So aside from those things that we already know about, there's even many other realities that in the modern system maybe we just haven't. Maybe the modern system, we're just too immature to have identified those things, but they exist. And other societies have documented them. So to say that there's no space in between entities, there can be that something can happen and it's not affecting the rest of what's around what's happening. It doesn't make sense in reality, because whatever we're doing, whatever we're saying, is connected to everything else around us. Our thoughts, our deeds, our words, they echo into existence, and they ripple out. Like, you ever seen a pebble falling in a pond, and the ripple that goes out is something small, but it can create a ripple that goes far.
Yeah.
And that ripple connects is because all of the water is connected to the rest of the water. And eventually those waves can hit a shore and cause an impact on the land that causes an impact on something else, that causes an impact on something else, and so on and so on and so on. So our words function like this. We all know that there's been times in our lives when something was said to us and it affected us in a profound way. It could have been very simple, whatever was told to us, but it affects us in a profound way, to the extent that maybe years later we're still thinking about it. We're still motivated by it. We're still living by certain principles. Someone might tell you, haste makes waste. Just something simple. And if that pops into your head anytime you're getting hasty, those words can have a profound impact on your life. At the same time, someone can tell you something that can truly just devastate you. And the devastation that those words cause on you, you end up being the one to pass that devastation on to others. Just like if someone says something that inspires you and causes you to, function in a way that improves your life, improves the quality of life in any way, those improvements, those can kind of affect other people too. So there's this ripple effect that happens with everything. And so that's why it's very important, to guard our speech. We talk about the Medu language, and, obviously it's a language that's near the origins of human civilization. That was kind of, humanity had that language at a time where we were much more in tune with the natural realities, the divine realities, that of existence. And the language expresses those natural and divine realities as well. And even to this day, if you're in Africa, especially in the temples of Africa, but just in the culture in general, there's this great use of what you call a proverb. And a proverb will be something something that you're told that has like a metaphorical symbolism. Like if you go to the river, someone takes you to the river and shows you how to clean yourself. You go to where that person brings you. And then once you learn how to clean yourself in the river, you can go to the part of the river that you want to be at. It's a simple saying, but the saying can be profound. And there's, proverbs. You can, go through Africa and find probably tens or hundreds of thousands of proverbs. One thing I find interesting is, like, even if you listen to the traditional music and sounds, you'll find that the music carries a meaning that's very, very deep. Like, the lyrics carry a meaning. And even sometimes, probably usually, and this is something that I don't know as much about in detail, but usually even the notes of the music carry a language and carry a meaning. But then you have the words to it, and those words carry a meaning as well, which the meaning will be something very significant for a person in their life. You'll even have like drummers who will give you a rhythm and a proverb that is something that is something that you need to keep in mind for your life, and that will be like a form of what we call the divination.
So music itself, really, sounds was one of this natural, we could look at it as one of the first languages and really out there within our existence, sense, really, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why even now, one of the biggest tools that the modern system uses to control people is music.
Yeah.
You'll notice that the type of music that they allow playing on the radio,
that's right.
There's only certain messages that are allowed to be talked about. And then these type of languages, like everybody has the experience of being, having a song stuck into your head, so to speak. And that song, or maybe lyrics from a song, will be playing in your head over and over. And then if you're not mentally strong enough, or you're not mentally principled enough, those words can start to come and influence you in a certain way, and in certain situations can lead you to, commit destructive or barbaric or disgusting type of acts.
Well, if you notice, like in the schools, they start the children with nursery rhymes, isn't it? And that's how easy. If you look at most children out there, young children out there, they probably sometimes can't say their ABC, but they will listen to a song or something like that, and they will remember.
Yeah, that maybe when we were younger, yeah, but nowadays they just go straight to MTV or whatever they have in UK that's comparable, the music videos and stuff, and they're already coming up with dances and stuff, to songs that are raunchy or violent, They don't know what they're saying, but they're grooving to the beat and they're doing cute dances, and you're like, oh, that's so cute. You don't know that, those words are started to implant themselves already.
That's right. It's growing.
It's a technique that's very old. You can go all the way back to Plato's Republic, which was published, before the Common Era, I think around 750 BC or so. It's either 350 or 750, that area. And if you read that book, they're already telling you that there's certain types of music that they're going to only allow, and then other types of music will be banned, based on the fact that we want to educate our children to, function a certain way. We want to stimulate certain types of feeling in people based on the music that the tones that they hear in the music. So that's been known for over 2,000 years, and known, and not only known, but known and applied for that purpose of controlling the masses.
mean, we can also look at when they're doing like their speeches, you know, like there's different tones and things that is used really to encapsulate the audience, to encapsulate your brain, and they realize that. So all these things are figured out really in just when they're doing a presentation, really, isn't it? Even the lights and the ambience around. That's all
Yeah,
controlled.
absolutely. There's, and that's why you even see around the world, there's a lot of languages that you call like tone. Like even the tone that you speak a word in will determine the meaning of it. Like you can have, I mean, a word that's like the exact same pronunciation, but based on the tone, it will be different. Like I know some people might laugh at the way Chinese people talk, but even the way Chinese people talk, like the Chinese language, or maybe the version of it that we're used to hearing, or the Korean languages like this, they have tonal variations that you have to actually speak in those tones in order to get the meaning of it. So the way they say it might sound funny to us, that's actually what gives it its meaning.
Hmm. It's similar to the Medu
So
language, isn't it?
to the middle,
Mm.
yeah, and African languages in general have that tonal aspect. You in Africa here, I use Chinese as an example because that's what we're more used to hearing than African traditional language. But if you listen to people here in Africa talk, even if they're speaking French or English, there's like even a musical quality to it.
Yeah. Hujai Hatane.
Ujai is the name Kasabez.
Yeah, yeah. It's very, very similar to, as you know, Jamaicans or enslaved Africans. So there is a lot of tonal language that we don't even have to use a word. We can just use a sound, and we all know what it means. If I say like or
Mm.
we all know what it means as Jamaicans. So it is about definitely about sound and tones and then the energy that goes with it. And it's also the same if we're speaking to, for instance, a pet. Uh, Animals don't speak our language, but they certainly know what we mean in certain instructions that we may give them, and that's dependent on the tone and the energy that goes behind the words that we use. So, as we know, the universe was started from word power, the sound, the energy, and we know that society is constantly triggering our youth by certain words that they use. For instance, the most infamous word, the N word. And many a man or woman has probably died trying to defend themselves because someone used that word on them. And it's all about, what's the word? For instance, the N word being used in Jamaica has no influence compared to if it's used on someone in America. So, and that's where we're talking about contemporary agreements as well. When you buy into certain things, then it will affect you according to what you've actually accepted. So personally, my children, they don't get offended by the N word because I've told them their heritage, and so it means nothing to them. So if someone were to use it on them, it has no connotation to them. They will not get upset over it. But if it's, as we said, if it's someone from the States, it's a completely different scenario. So
Well, yeah, that's an interesting topic. You're talking about the word nigger, right?
mhm.
Yeah, that's like it's a word. It's a perfect example of conditioning. People have been so conditioned that that word is bad. The way you even said it is I just had to laugh to myself. You're like, people have fought and died because that word has been used on them, like they were injected with the coronavirus,
Yeah.
or they were, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they've been injected with the deadly disease. Or, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not. It's a word, you know. But the programming is so that a person is supposed to be triggered by that. I mean, I know that's become like a popular word nowadays. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so triggered right now. Like someone has the ability to pull your trigger. And what that means is, like, by doing something or saying something, or even gesturing or looking a certain way, they can cause you to react.
That's right. And you've
But
given your power over
that's
to them.
that's like really pathetic,
That's
that someone will have that level of control over you to where you react based on what somebody says, and that will totally, like, if you're educating somebody to react that way, no, it's because you want them to function like an animal.
Yeah.
Like that's how we train animals. Like we say, sit, roll over, bark, shake hands, right? Like, if you say a specific word to somebody, that's supposed to cause a reaction. So if you react, you're basically doing what the person is instructing you to do.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of, that's just one example. There's a lot of examples of that nowadays, of words that have now been kind of like censored or been termed like sensitive words, to where even if you say it in the wrong circumstance, it could be considered like a hate crime.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. I'm not even going to
And
say
now,
the word.
yeah, don't get wisdom of the Nile show, suspended or blocked. Okay, we don't need that.
Exactly. Oh gosh. But yeah, oh man, how do we teach our youth the discipline that they need to not be triggered by words that society has deliberately used against them in order to get a reaction out of them?
Well, interestingly enough, I haven't really. I'm a parent. I have 5 children, but my oldest is only 11, and that's not really something he's had to deal with. So it's not something that I've ever even talked to him about. And I don't talk to my children about racial stuff. Like, they might, even they'll talk about sometimes their skin tones and things like that. Are you brown, or what color are you? Are you this, are you that? That's one thing. But however, talking about it in terms of a race, like I'm this race and so-and-so's that race, like it's not really something we deal with in our house so much. Because, according to history, I guess you could say, we know where the idea of race is even coming from. And we know the agenda behind why people are functioning like, based on race. We know it's a tool of division. So then that word nigger is just a manifestation of that certain ideology of race that's really a false construct to begin with. So if you don't buy into the concept of race as a reality, then there's no reason to get upset about someone using a word to describe you that, whatever. If someone kind of, let's put it this way, I don't know how I would tell somebody, or tell my child, or tell somebody that, how you're not going to react when someone expresses that they hate you, or when someone expresses that uh, they think you're less than them, or whatever the case may be. I don't know how to tell someone to react to something like this, but we know that, like if we at least can educate our children to have some kind of a self image where they know that whatever someone says about them doesn't dictate their reality.
Exactly.
In that case, they don't have to feel like they have to prove something.
This is it. This is it. It's about self-pride, self-identity, and knowledge of their heritage. Really, I mean,
Yeah, if you know who you are, you know what your goals are in life and where you're headed with your life. No one should be able to distract you from that. I
exactly.
had sometimes there's simple things you can just observe. I was with my children at the pool. One of my sons got out the pool, and because he was like, it's cold. I don't want to, I'm not going back in. One of the other boys who was with us was like, "You're not gonna get back in. What are you? I don't know. I don't remember what he said. What are you scared or this or that?" And he was like, "Whatever. I'm not getting back in. I don't want to." And he just totally wasn't phased. And I was like, "Well, that's good. That's a good sign, Even if, regardless of what you might say about should he be able to tough out the cold if he has to, that's a whole different conversation. But the idea of him at least standing on what he decided and not being influenced based on someone, kind of trying to make fun of him, I was happy to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we grew up with a proverb, so to speak, to say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. And that was a mantra that we, as children, we chanted that. And so by doing so, there were certain words that people would throw at us to upset us that it was like water off a duck's back, you know. So, but we do know that words can be extremely hurtful. So it is a silly little proverb because words can cut people and cause a lot of trauma within people as well.
Well, absolutely, and that's why we need to be very careful about what we say.
Yes.
But it's interesting that, I mean, to me, it just has to be a balance there. I notice in Africa, the culture here, like people can be very, people can make fun of each other, a lot here, and that's one thing I noticed, like in black culture growing up, that there was, this idea of just doing the dozens or just making fun of each other or talking about each other's moms and things like that. That when I was growing up, I used to hate, but I realized, that having to go through those kind of difficult situations of being made fun of or whatever, like now that I'm older, I'm a lot more resilient to that type of thing, So I think there's a balance. Like you can't react to everything, but at the same time, if you're the one speaking, you should also be aware of the impact of your words. That's regardless of whatever language you're speaking.
Absolutely. And one of the commandments is as well, thou shalt not cause misunderstanding. So
yeah, thou shalt not speak scornfully.
exactly, or use scornful words.
Thou
So
shalt not act with insolence. Thou shalt not curse a king or curse a divinity. There's just so many words. There's many commandments that we have that's related just to speech.
Definitely, definitely.
So when we look at that, then really we see that as a perfect model. Then really,
Absolutely.
in terms of the word, sound, and power, that's what's being carried within those 77 commandments.
Well, we have an idea in or what's the word? A concept in the Medu. There's a word in the Medu that in Medu the words carry concepts, and it's a concept that's not really in English. It's called the Hekau, which is basically a word of power, or words of power, words that affect the existence. And we can say any word can have its impact on existence, but we know that some words have more impact than others. But the Hekau will be words that are organized in such a way that they can manifest in reality certain things. And the basis of the Hekau is just what we call logic, which is words that match the reality of things.
Ujjayi had to leave.
Yes.
Yes.
Ujjayi.
I know that we've only got a few minutes left, and language, word, sound, and power is such a huge topic. And I'm glad that you just touched on the Hekau, because the question that I want to ask is kind of more related to prayer. And I know earlier you mentioned about tone and words carry ripples, and I even referring to the Chinese language, where a slight tone can literally change the meaning of is a different word with a completely different meaning. I just wanted to I'm trying to figure out how to formalize this question actually, but what I'm really trying to get at is, so like when we're chanting, like for example, if we're chanting to Amun, and then you have the Christian indoctrination when they're praying, and then they end they're praying to their Jesus, but ending that prayer with Amen. Can you give some insight into like what is happening there vibrationally or energetically, spiritually? I know it's big.
No, we talked about that, didn't we?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, Christians at the end of prayers will say Amen. Muslims at the end of prayer will say Amin. Both of those are different ways of saying Iman, Amin, Aman, which is the name of one of the gods of the Kemetic, one of the first creator gods in existence. After Ra, the first who came forth, there was Iman. And between the two of them, they created the four elements that make up all of existence, which is fire, air, water, and earth. The god Iman, the god Iman is known as the hidden one. Ra is the god who took a visible position and even is represented by the sun, by light, so Iman, that left Iman to take a position that's more so hidden. And with him taking that position, he said, I'll be in everything. No one will see me, but I'll be there. And so you can see that even he managed to hide himself somewhere in these religions where every time they have to be chanting his name. It's just, it's very interesting.
I suppose what I'm trying to get at as well is the impact. Is it carrying the same energy? Is it reaching the same place, regardless of the context of where it's coming from?
Well, yeah, of course, it's the same reality we're all in, and what we have to keep in mind is that these modern religions, we know that they're plagiarized from the original ones. When they were coming up with their religions, they had to deliver them in a way that's familiar enough to humanity and our, memory, even the memory of our spirit, that it can somehow resonate with us a little bit, at least enough for us to follow it, if we don't have any other choice, especially, So we have to. There's a lot of examples like that. This where there's connections between the original and the copy. So there's, you know, even the name Abraham or Ibrahim has the same Ra in it. So yeah, there's an aspect of still kind of like having to secretly acknowledge these origins in order to allow their copies to function. But you'll see these type of correlations all throughout, where they slowly were able to take humanity away from the reality of things into their version of it, and then to a point where now it's getting to where more people are really adopting the original Greek ideology, which was that there's no God at all. You know, that for the original Greek philosophers, the existence of the gods was just a tool to control the masses, which is clearly laid out in the same Plato's Republic that I referenced earlier, that they would alter the stories of the gods based on how they want people to behave. It had nothing to do with actual belief or, you know, really sincerely believing that something is true. It's like it's just a means of control. So we're still under that same kind of ideology now, and we're getting closer to where they want us to be, which is a total non-belief, a total atheist, anything goes society. You only live once society. Live life to the fullest society.
Can I just ask them, because I think I've got an idea what Satapti might be alluding at, but would it be correct to say that by the religion using the Neteru, the Nete Amen, Imen, to end their prayers, they feel as if using that word is going to validate their prayers? Now, would it be correct to say that by them using that word, their prayers are validated?
No.
Okay.
Because no, I mean there's a sense of kind of like legitimizing it. You know, people have to feel like it's legitimized in their own minds in order to kind of follow it. But that doesn't mean that the actual prayers have power, because there's a way that prayer has to be done. I mean, we can get, you know, we can go off into the whole aspect of the need for being pure in mind, body, and spirit, or like, again, even the Hekau itself is like the words need to carry, like the whole prayer needs to carry a logic. It has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense in reality, why will you call on one of the great creator of gods of the whole existence and think he's going to answer your prayer? It doesn't work.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I agree. Well, you know, as well, one of the first things that the enslavers did was to take our language away. And as we know, Medu was punishable by death. But as people who were stolen and brought to strange lands, they deliberately split up bloodlines so that we couldn't communicate with each other. And this was the great division that they used, the first division that they used against us, just language, denying us of speaking our indigenous language, no matter what tribe we came from. They would move us from someone that spoke the same language as us, just to confuse us. So
I mean, they did so much. They've done so much. And yeah, the language is a big part of it. It's a big aspect. But understand that, like, even with whatever of their culture, of their values, of their origins, and tried to pass what they could on to their descendants. But there's been just a gradual degradation over time, over generations, that didn't just happen all at once. It happened over the course of hundreds of years,
Exactly.
to a point where now, our people are just so confused. And every new so-called idea of innovation and progress that's going to get us away from the, oppressive, or take us out of our oppression, it ends up being like, an insect trying to struggle to get out of a web, and the more it's struggling, the more it's getting tangled up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the mere fact that we have lost our languages, to move to Merita, how difficult has it been for you in regards to not speaking the language that you're amongst?
I mean, it's kind of difficult, but I came, okay. Here in Africa, the countries that we mostly go to are French-speaking countries. So mostly the Earth Center's presence is in Burkina Faso and Togo. And those two countries were colonized by the French. Now, aside from French, you still have, it's not like America where they just decimated the indigenous population to a point where there's no such thing as, you don't even know who the original tribes are, the land that you're sitting on. You don't know what their language was. You don't know anything about them. But in Africa here, the original tribe still exists, and they still have their languages. And so there's those languages too. So it's almost like layers of language that we're dealing with. You have like a handful of people who speak English, and that will really be at places like the airport, or I don't know, like maybe like the official businesses where you might expect Americans to go to. But for the most part, people here speaking French, and you can even get to places where they don't even speak French. They only speak, some people only speak the traditional languages. So it can be difficult, but for me, it was helpful because that I already know some French coming in here, and I'm just taking the challenge head on to making sure to learn the language as quickly as possible so I can function. But it's not really that big of a handicap because I have some functional use of the language, but it does present its challenges because having more in-depth conversations becomes very difficult.
Absolutely. So, but you're talking about a colonial language now, other than
Yes.
the English. So, would it? Oh gosh, how I'm trying to phrase this. And I know that there are a few African countries now that are trying to teach or speak their indigenous language in the schools rather than a colonial language. So, are your children learning an indigenous language, or are they learning French?
Right now, they were learning French.
Okay. So,
But the thing is that I'm not trying to function on an ideological level right now. I'm functioning on a realistic level.
practical, yes.
And the reality is, like, the places where I'm likely to be, French is the most likely language that I'm going to have to be able to speak.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that I'm stopping at learning French. That's just where I'm starting. But for sure, we plan to be here long enough to be able to pick up these other traditional languages to be able to speak those as well. So that's going to come, and it's going to come with time. But it's we have to look at the long-term plan. It's not about just what ideologically kind of resonates, but also think about practically, step by step, what's going to serve the bigger picture that we're looking to achieve.
Yeah, I understand that. I do. do.
I'm still a young man. I still got about another 125 years here on this earth. So I'm planning on learning several languages, but I'm starting with French.
Excellent. Good for you.
And my children will be able to, learn even a lot more because they're still at an age where their brains can absorb like sponges. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that one.
Uh-huh.
As long as they understand why it's important, they'll do it. You see, it's just about the education. So it's coming.
Yeah, definitely.
There's that language international. They're trying to use that. Was it?
Can't hear you, son.
No, what's that language that Africans trying to use as a international language now?
Swahili.
Swahili. Yeah. Is that being spoken over there?
Swahili over here? No, not at all.
It's not been.
The big languages here. I'm in the city. The city that I'm in is called Bobo Dioulasso. The main languages here are, aside from French, would be Jola, which is it's a language of the region that's kind of like a trade language, which makes it kind of similar to Swahili, but because it's not really, to my understanding, it's not really a language that belongs to a particular tribe. It's like a language of commerce that's become something that people here, regardless of whatever their tribal affiliations are, they can speak. The other one is Mosi, or More, which is the language of the Mosi tribe. So the Mosi tribe is I hate to use the word, but I guess the word to use is dominant tribe in this region. And, or I should say in the country more or less, which Bobo Dioulasso is like on the edge of the country, but the whole country is more or less controlled by the Mosi tribe. And so their language is something that is spoken more or less throughout the country, to a point where, like, here we have some people who are like relatives of Master Naba who actually are from the eastern part of the country. We're here on the western, the whole other end of the country, and if you had to drive from one town to one city to the other, it would be maybe 12 hours at least. So it's a long ways away, but they speak like the people who's from the east who came over here. I noticed the brother was talking to some people and I was like, that's not French. I was like, what language is that? He said it's More. So I'm like, wow, so they speak it all the way from the west, from the east to the west.
I was looking at a few things yesterday and about the origins of language. And I didn't get into too much depth with it because I didn't want to be indoctrinated by another European conception of what they think a language is.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that the original language is Medu, from which all other languages have stemmed from, or variations of Medu. Do you notice any of that in your interactions with indigenous people? Do you notice any Medu?
About the origins being Medu?
Yeah.
Nah, it's not that easy. It's not that easy because you have difficulty trying to follow what a person is saying, let alone knowing what they mean to know what words might correlate to Medu. So that's not something I've been able to do as of yet. But like I said, that's coming.
Yeah, but this biblical tale about the what is it, the Tower of Babel, where languages came from, or how different nations of people ended up speaking different languages. I know that's a topic for another time, but it's always intrigued me. And the Bible story of how languages came into being never convinced me either. So, yeah, maybe in time that could be another topic.
Well, in that same Initiated Tales book, there's a story called Diversity that tells the story of the Pharaoh Ramses,
Yeah.
who, during the invasion period, he told his children to go out in the world and, start their, I guess, to preserve certain aspects of the culture, each of them. So each of them kind of came up with a different expression of culture that became like what we now know as the tribal expression. That's why nowadays you have all these different tribes around the world that have their different expression.
Okay.
So that's a big part of the history there is, that invasion period causing like a scattering of the people to try to preserve the culture in different aspects in various places in the world. But so now over time, unfortunately, what happens is like a degradation from the original because it's just difficult to pass down for generation to generation over thousands of years something like so accurately. But there's still, that doesn't mean that the language is gone. It's just that maybe some of the words will change over time. I'll give an example. In Togo, there's the Tim tribe, and now due to the Tim tribe speaks, as you would expect, the Tim language. But due to the influence of Islam in the area, trying to pull people away from their traditions, like they came up with like a dialect of the language called Kotokoli. So Kotokoli uses a lot of the same aspects of Tim, but there's still like differences in the language, and it's like a degraded version of it. So, that's one example, but there's many, I'm sure, examples throughout history like this one. So, I mean, it's, that's why I keep saying, to anyone who will listen, like, what we're doing is so important. And because literally, the traditions that we're trying to uphold have been under attack for the last 3,000 years at least. And it's a battle that's going to take all we can give in order to try to, just survive and keep things going. We're not in a position to take it easy. So, I know sometimes the path can get difficult or discouraging based on the way things, can start to look bleak, or start to look what's the word, like almost like there's nothing we can do about it. But there's two choices at that point. It's like you either give up or you keep going. And the only way to guarantee that you'll lose is if you give up.
Yeah, it's because it's just like a plant, isn't it? If it's withering, it doesn't mean to say that it's dead yet. Once you keep watering it, there's always that chance for you, right, that it's going to revitalize itself and come back. And I think that's probably...
Yeah, but it doesn't, that's the thing. It's not going to revitalize itself. It gets revitalized by the fact that we're fighting for its revitalization.
Yeah, and we're putting the fuel on it to help it to kind of to go forward again. And this is where we have to continue this journey.
So one way of moving forward then is to well, I know definitely what I do. I do not let my children speak slang and buy into the contemporary agreements, because not only does it cause confusion, it also um, dampens their intelligence. If you can't find a word to use rather than a swear word, for example, many people in the conversation they're using the F word every other second, and it's like where is their intelligence to use correct words or words that have a meaning in order to relay what they actually are trying to express. So we go back to this word power and sound, you know, or sorry, should I say word sound power. You know, words are extremely powerful, and we need to teach our children about the culture that has been used to destroy us, and how to, as you say, through to just keep going and reclaim, reclaim and bring back.
Because it's so important though, really, when we really look at, say, we see our children out there constantly being stopped by the system, stopped by the police, and just being able for them to can articulate themselves without being provoked to using the wrong words to incite more problems onto themselves. So yeah, that's the significance really, right? Where it's through the teaching basically that our children is going to learn really, and this is where even doing the medu can assist really, right, in helping them to kind of articulate themselves even more, even probably sometimes to stop and think before they speak. Because most cases, that's what's happening out there. They're reacting before they think about what they're doing. By the time they think about it, the act has been done and the system is down on them. You know.
Okay, Hattani, so we got to wrap up the show. Is there any parting words that you'd like to give to the listeners, please?
I mean, the topic goes really far, and there's a lot I could say. But I notice nowadays that people really use a lot of buzzwords and a lot of rhetoric, and have really bought into like political type speech where what you really are saying doesn't really matter. It's more about which side are you on. But we end up getting in a position of being just easily manipulated. And I notice nowadays that people get so emotionally invested now in the way people should talk, things you should say and things you shouldn't say, to a point where it's just normal nowadays for the the big tech companies, the social media companies, to just censor people, and there's no public outcry about the fact that it's happening, because people have bought into this idea that you can, that's needed. And the reason is because people are not really taking responsibility for thinking about what they're saying and thinking about what's being said. It's more so like, if you say this, it could be dangerous and people could die based on that. Because there's no accountability for people being thinking people. So the importance of language is something that we have to really invest ourselves in. Like, really trying to understand what's being communicated and trying to understand how to best communicate an idea for other people based on what is our goal of saying what we have to say. If we can do that, maybe there can be more understanding amongst people instead of just division based on rhetoric and political affiliation. So those type of divisions are what's being really exploited right now in order to for the so-called powers that be to effectively keep us under control. So fighting back against that doesn't mean like carrying guns around. It's just trying to spread a logic of having that level of attention instead of just being reactive to whatever is happening around it.
Okay, Nancy, Anthony, on that note, we're going to say dua for your contribution to tonight's show. Our topic being language, words, sound, and power. And we just wish you all the best where you are there in the sunny environment that we're longing to be in at some stage in time when we're released from this lockdown that society has imposed on us here in this side of the world anyway.
Yeah, I feel bad for you guys over there in UK.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, well, yeah, for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to
Yeah, it is a pleasure having you
keep walking down this journey with all you guys.
Okay, dua hu atene, dua hu. Nete
All right,
dua.
well, Letter dua to you guys as well.
Iriru.
Little.
And there you have it. That was our Anthony Kasabez. He's there in what was it, Bobo?
Bobo himself.
Enjoying the natural liberty and probably having the experience of how probably people should be living. To a lot of people, as they say, they might not seem like they have much, but they live in a better quality of life as human beings. We have abundance of destructive things, and they have a little bit of goodness. That's how we can explain it. So we want to conclude tonight's show basically, and we just have to say, look at the balance that Eru sets really in how when we use words and our positive and negative, it can come across to people. So it's about trying to be mindful how we're saying things, and just try to think before you speak in some cases. Yeah. You got anything to say to Adam?
Just to say, the 77 commandments are is the perfect model and the guide for us. And as has been mentioned during the show, there are several commandments there that relate to speech. So we should be mindful of those and do our best to apply those in our daily lives.
Dua sent, and as I said, the London schools having an event on the 31st of this month. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and you will find the links if you wish to join online, and the information that you could come to attend at our temple. So it's the 31st of July, The topic is the importance of practicing an African spiritual system. So you can telephone us on 0208 558 3678. Email enquiries-uk@theearthcentre.org. The websites again for where one can purchase the books, the posters, the 77 Commandments, Book of Purification, the Hajj Patar, the Philosophy Podium, is www.theearthcentre.org and www.theearthcentreuk.com.
Well, on that note, we want to play this. Maakmaah.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word manifested and took on flesh. The tongue has power over life and death. Never underestimate the power of the Word. Careful when you choose them. Mind how you use them. Hey, word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. Yo, yo, yo. Word sound are where we depend. Word sound just as powerful as any weapon. Lyrics from the heart, that is my ammunition. Right now me depend automatic transmission. I man is a soldier on a musical mission. Blaze me lyrical composition. Me no need no license, nah, no permission. Firing at alongside the musician. Word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. Them say sticks and stones will break your bones, but words can never hurt. That might be right in theory, in reality that don't work. Words can make you look so stupid, feel just like a jerk, or bring you up so high till you're the ruler of the earth. For total satisfaction you need words alongside action. When it manifests it gives a positive reaction. Comfort and encouragement, some words of motivation. The right word in the right place can go educate a nation. Word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. Yo. Send them come, cause we ready for them. Done them done. Anytime we give them. Tell them once, tell them twice. Now go tell them again. Finger cock, finger lock, ready for go for me pen. Mightier than the sword, I no lie, no fraud. Words go pretty far, change more people than war. I no blah me a blah, even left you with scar. Good words can shape who you are. Word sound. Word sound in power. Word sound. Word sound in power. It's all about words. Never underestimate the power of words. Make sure them sweet, never sour those words. Make sure your words are inspiring words. Can even stop a gun from firing. Words can be good, words can be bad. Words can be happy, words can be sad. Words can do damage and drive people mad. In the beginning was the word of. Word sound. Word sound in power. 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 Yo, yo, yo. Word sound are where we depend. Word sound just as powerful as any weapon. Lyrics from the heart, that are me ammunition.
goes in the memory of the beloved Prophet Nebnabala Musa Mordinabig, the Dogon Prince, Mahir, the truth teller, Bisina Basa, which means I'll be appreciated after I'm gone. He's the man who overcome the devils with love. He's the man who speaks because he has something to say. The man of wisdom, the definition of humanity. Maheru, Maheru, Maheru. I'm from far away, I'm from far away, far away, from far away, West Africa, from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, Lamusa, far away, Tenebi, far away, Prophet from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, from far away, from far away, Prophet from far away. He's the man of wisdom. He's the man who lived by faith, and not by fear. His greatest wealth is the richness of his soul. He's the man who lived by faith and not by fear. He's the double-edged sword. He's the double-edged sword. He's the key to unlock the treachery. Follow truth and you shall find him. He's the definition of humanity. He's the beginning and the end. He's the prophet Naba. Far away, I'm from far away, far away, from far away, West Africa, from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, Lamusa, far away, Tenebi, far away, Prophet from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, from far away, from far away, Prophet from far away. Bob Marley say, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophet while we stand aside and look? Oh, some say it's just a part of it. We gotta fulfill the book. Come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru. He got your own told story. I'm from far away, I'm from far away.